I get the honor of introducing our guest speaker here today, Dr. Tom Preston. I've known since before I was a chiropractor, so quite some time now. I've had the chance to share meals with him. I've had the chance to be in a sweat lodge with him. I've had the chance to listen to him speak a number of times. I even asked some of his clients what they would say about Dr. Tom, and the feedback I received was he eats, lives, breathes, sleeps how to teach you how to live an authentic life in your ideal. So I know he's got some great wisdom to share with you. I was really excited when Ed told me he was going to be here with us today. So please welcome Dr. Tom.
Well, that's a roundabout way to get here, right? Good morning, everyone. Thanks to Ed and the team for inviting me to come and share some thoughts with you. My backstory is, by the way, has anybody ever heard me speak before? Anybody? No? Oh, a handful of people. Okay, cool. So then I get to tell all those bad jokes, right? You can just, grin because it doesn't get funnier than that, right? So here's my backstory. So Ed and I did, in fact, grow up in the same small town of 700 people. His older brother was a little closer to my age, and so we hung out. And I tell the story, which is a slight exaggeration, but storytellers get a little attitude, correct, right? I used to referee when I was a teenager because that's how I put gas in the car, right? And so Little Eddie, as he referred to himself, right? I remember one time I was refereeing one of Little Eddie's novice hockey games, and Little Eddie didn't know where the hell he was supposed to be at the face-off circle. So I literally stopped, I went over and I said, Ed, here, sit here. And he said, got it, it's cool. So I've known Ed a long time and his family, and it's just a real joy for me to watch what Ed has chosen to do with his life. And again, sometimes it takes a crisis to really wake us up to the next piece. I'm not sure it always has to be that way, but it certainly seems to be a common pathway, right? As Ed talked about necessity, right? We have a saying in my company, we call it burn the boats, right? Where the story of the... Say again? Yeah, absolutely, right? So there's a story of the Christian Crusades in the Muslim lands and stuff, right? And there was, they were outnumbered 10-1. And so they're like, all of the English were like crapping their pants, and they're like, okay, maybe we should just get back on the damn boats and leave. And the English general said, he sent the envoys out to the boats, and he said, yeah, we're going to go back to the boats, but we're going to burn the boats. He said, we either live or die today based upon our purpose and our mission. And of course, the story goes that they actually defeated, this particular group based upon being outnumbered 10-1. So burning the boats is something that I ended up kind of having to do. So my backstory was, I graduated from the Canadian Memorial Chiropractic College in 1988, back when dinosaurs roamed the earth. And yeah, it doesn't get funnier than that, you guys. You can just giggle a little bit. Humor me, okay? And I actually didn't understand really what chiropractic was, despite being exposed to chiropractic, as a child. Played a lot of sports and stuff and got banged around a lot, and would go for sort of that crisis care stuff. But as I went through my journey in chiropractic, I settled in on becoming a family wellness practitioner. And I think there's value for all forms of healthcare providers, certainly in chiropractic. And so I settled in, and so my intentional lived life, once I woke up to realize that there's a value to an intentionally lived life, was to take 10 to 12 weeks of holidays a year, make a nice net 6-figure income, and work about 25 hours a week. And apparently that had some appeal to people, because people started asking me to speak and share my thoughts and so on, right? And then out of that, I started getting these calls from around planet Earth. Someone would hear me speak somewhere or hear me on a thing, and they wanted to pick my brain. And I also, which I'll share in a minute, my greatest muse, my greatest love is my family. My wife and I have 5 daughters. A small sigh. Guys, come on. Yeah, thank you. Okay, come on, give me something. So with a very busy family, which is my highest value, we're going to talk about values in a minute, as well as a very busy, from my standards, very, very, very busy, practicing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people a week. And then I started speaking 20, 25 weekends a year. Well, maybe there's some people that can do that. I couldn't. And I'm one of those guys, if I can't do it well, I'd rather just, not do it, right? So, but what I believe is that whenever you have a physical something going on in your life, there's always a mental, emotional, spiritual component to it, right? Because I'm one of those guys that lives in a space that says we are, in fact, spiritual beings having a human experience. So what I contended was my spirit was crying out that it was time for me to change the form with which I shared my gifts with the world. And I would offer, from just kind of reading the energy of the room, I'm going to bet that there's several of you in this room right now that are in that junction place, that are feeling like it might be time to change the form with which you share your gifts with the world. And I can tell you that you don't have to attract a Crohn's disease like Ed did, or for me, I was the chiropractor with the bad back, right? You know, the plumber with the leaky toilet, I was the chiropractor with the bad back. For clarity, I don't personally believe that, chiropractic treats low back pain any more than it treats, hemorrhoids, blindness, or anything else. I think we treat human beings, and some of those people have different conditions. And in fact, some of the RCTs I've seen that tell me that, quite frankly, chiropractors really aren't that good at low back pain. So the guys that hang their hat on that, or the women that hang their hat on that, I wonder. But literally, this was not just an everyday average thing. This was intense. The worst pain I'd ever had in my life. And it wasn't like I was sitting on my thumbs not doing something, right? I was literally getting checked and or adjusted daily if necessary, for months and months and months. I was seeing energy healers, I was seeing acupuncturists, I was seeing naturopaths, I was seeing massage therapists. Anything that I thought would help change my pain, I did that. I used to get up, I was at my office for 6:15 in the morning. We started with clients at 7. And I used to get up at 4 because it took me that long to actually get moving enough to where I could function in a way. I would do my morning rituals, which involved Taoist Tai Chi and yoga. I would lay on SOT blocks for literally 30 to 45 minutes at a time just so I could literally start to move. I would do my meditation. I would get in the shower, grunting and groaning, and then go to work. I lived with unrelenting low back pain every minute of every day of my life for 4.5 years. I couldn't be the chiropractor that had the bad back. I couldn't be that guy, so I hid it. And I had 5 children to feed. I had some commitments. I had things that I wanted to do with my life. And as Ed had said, in the culture that I grew up in, patriarchal society, men are the providers. And I was very afraid that I couldn't provide for my family. And couldn't continue with the commitments that I've made to my 5 daughters to do things like help them get a university education and so on. So I suffered. One of my great mentors says, the pain in this life is inevitable, but the suffering is optional. And I chose to suffer. Because I was so attached to the form with which I shared my gifts to the world, I was so attached to that I had to suffer. I had to suffer unrelenting low back pain every minute of every day of my life for 4.5 years in order to take me out of the form with which I was sharing my gifts to the world. Right? I pray, one of the reasons I'm here is that something I may say today in the next hour may touch at least 2 or 3 or 4 of your lives enough to help you realize you don't have to suffer. And whatever pain you're living with, embrace it, own it, stand in the light of it, and then take action based upon that. And that's really what my message has been and will continue to be. So my breaking point, my turning point was the day I was running because I was getting chubby. I was getting fat because I wasn't exercising. I couldn't exercise. I literally couldn't do anything. And I was doing some emotional eating stuff. I was getting fat. And I said, you know what, I don't want to live that way. So I'm going to, I'd rather be fit and hurt as be fat and hurt. I was going to hurt anyways. So I got back to running. And I'm running down the side of Highway 17, which is one of the major highways in Canada. Probably some of you know that. And it hurt. It hurt a lot. And there was a transport coming. And I thought, just that brief second, I'm not real proud of this, you guys, but for that brief second, I just thought, you know what, if I just step sideways really quick, this would all be over. And then I had this moment of like, holy shit, I just literally thought about committing suicide. And if anybody's ever been in that darkness, that's a frightening place to be. That's a very frightening place to be. I literally stopped. It was like November. It was actually this time of year, and it was like sleet and snow, and the truck went by, and I got covered in stuff off the truck, right? And I just stood on the side of the highway, kind of half crouched like that, and I cried. Like literally from the bottom of my soul, I cried. And I thought, there's got to be another way, right? So here's where I went to. One of my great mentors, John DeMartini, told me 30-some years ago when I first met him, he said, Tom, if there's something you're going to get caught in this life, it's form and time. Things that you intend in your life might take longer than you thought, or they might happen faster than you thought. Be open to that possibility. Consider that, you guys, for whatever it is that is the next phase of your life, okay? And then the form. If you get stuck on form, because my purpose as a chiropractor was the detection and release of subluxations for the enhancement of human potential. That was my purpose as a chiropractor. As a coach now for 20 plus years, I'm still, in my mind, fulfilling that purpose. I'm still detecting and releasing subluxations for the purpose of enhancing human potential. I'm just using different tools. And in most of those subluxations, for those of you that know the terminology, exist between the ears or largely over the heart. Right? So I'm still doing that, but I was so attached to the form. And so what I realized was that I had to go back to basic principles, and the basic principle for me was I am a child of God. I could stop right there. And some of the time, I was a healer, I was a chiropractor. And some of the time, I was a father. And some of the time, I was a coach. And I had these roles that I played. But what I had, because I had so many things attached to being a chiropractor, so I wasn't just a chiropractor. I was a cash-only chiropractor back in Canada when, OHIP was still around. When government was still subsidized, I was cash. And I wore that like a badge of honor, right? A little ego. And I wasn't just a chiropractor, but I was a high-volume chiropractor. We saw hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people every week. And then I was, a pediatric chiropractor. I had all these labels attached to who I was, instead of just standing in the light of the fact that I was a child of God and I had roles that I played. And not to minimize those roles, they're important roles, but is any one of those any more important than another one? I had a lot attached to that role of being a chiropractor in that form and sharing my gifts with the world. What I didn't realize and why I had to, I say I'm determined, my wife says I'm stubborn. 4.5 years is a pretty long time, you guys, right? It's a pretty long time. So what happened to me is I started cutting back my hours. And I had an associate on board, and I went from 24 hours to 16 hours. And then a few months later, I went to 12. And then a few months later, I went to 9. And then I went to 6. And I went, I'm going to run this thing into the ground, right? So we created a succession plan. I sold the practice to my associate. And one of the hardest things I ever did for 4 months, I said to my wife and my 5 daughters, I said, you need to go see Steve to get checked and or adjusted because I had so much. Is anybody a student of Eckhart Tolle? Anybody know Eckhart? Yep. Right? Or not? He talks about the pain body, right? I had such a pain body associated with the role that I played that I had to completely step back from it. So for 4 months, I didn't do anything. It was my version of Eckhart, sitting on a park bench feeding pigeons for 2 years, right? It was a gestation period for me to change the form of which what I did. Now, I'd been coaching, consulting a few people because, to go back on the story I started earlier, it's like people, calling me and asking me, and could I help them? Could I do this? And I'd spend hours on the phone with these people because this is pre-internet days, right? The dinosaurs roamed the earth, right? Thank you for the giggling. That's good. And literally, I said to a guy one time on the phone, I said, I'm really sorry. I'd really love to help you, but I'm sorry. I just literally, I don't have time. My highest value is my family. My bread and butter and my love is my passion and my practice. I just don't have time. And he goes, well, I could pay you. Well, listening to your audience, being a serial entrepreneur since I was 6 years old when I sold greeting cards door to door. And let's be clear, when I say greeting cards door to door, I mean my aunts and my grandma bought it because no one would buy, right? I thought, well, here's an opportunity. But again, when I come out of a multiple 6-figure income, when I sold my practice, I had about a year of income to live. And I thought, in a year I can bounce back. For 4 months I did almost nothing. But then what birthed was, and I went from hundreds of thousands of dollars of income a year to literally on the books that year I had $15,000 in coaching clients. $15,000. But again, at that point I had burnt the boats, right? It was a necessity. It was like I wasn't willing to be that guy that wasn't going to be able to feed his children. I didn't want to be that guy that sold a shit on the internet so that I could buy a turkey dinner. I didn't want to be that guy. If I had to be that guy, I could be that guy. But I didn't want to choose that, right? So here was the imagery that I had for myself, you guys, just as a quick one. My oldest daughter, Jera, who, by the way, I'm very proud. She had she gave birth to our first grandson 3.5, 4 months ago. So, yay! And I had this mental imagery of, and there's a for those of you that are Canadians, right? Tim Hortons, the coffee franchise, right? So I had this image. We like Dunkin' Donuts in the States, right? And so I had this imagery of because my parents, God bless them, my dad's 82 years old. He still has a mortgage on his house, right? They live old age pension check to old age pension check. So that was the money blueprint that I grew up with, right? Not right or wrong, good or bad. It was just the reality, right? And so when I went to university and did my doctorate and stuff, my parents gave me moral support, which was have a good life. But as far as financial support, they didn't have 3 nickels to rub together. My wife and I made a different commitment. We wanted to help educate our 5 daughters through university. And we literally, successfully, October 2016, put our last dollars into our children's education fund.
That's awesome.
5 daughters, $500,000 of after-tax money. I'm very proud of that. Thank you for that. And so literally, here was the imagery that I had though, right? So Jera, our oldest, she's 18 years old. She graduated high school. And she goes and puts on one of those god-awful little hair nets that they have to wear at those Dunkin' Donuts, Tim Hortons stores, right? And she goes, "Hey, Dad, I didn't need to go to university. I didn't need any education. I'll just work for minimum wage the rest of my life, and I'll have a little apartment I'll live in, and My life would be okay, Dad. You did the best you could. You tried. That brings up emotion for me. You know what? Not on my watch. Not on my watch. Not on my watch. So, when I let go of the form with which I was sharing my gifts with the world, what do you think happened to my low back pain, gang? Mysteriously, magically, it started to get better. And I was on a call, just for those of you that are chiropractors. By the way, who's chiropractors in the room? There's a lot of you. Yeah, cool. So I'll put a shameless plug in for upper cervical work because I believe in it so strongly. And one of my clients, who's a very well-known upper cervical guy in the province of Quebec, I was on a call with him one time, and he goes, "Coach, what's wrong with you?" And I said, "Oh, nothing. I just had a kind of a tough weekend or stuff like that." "Then you get in your car and you drive to Quebec City to see me." And I said, "Oh, that's really cool, but that's like a 10-hour drive. I'm not going to." He goes, "No, get in the car." And he hung the phone up. And I went, "Oh, shit." So my wife was actually kind of listening in. She goes, "What was that about?" I said, "Danielle told me to get in the car and drive to Quebec City." She goes, "Well, then why the hell don't you?" I went, okay, I guess I'm going to Quebec City. So I drove to Quebec City, and his upper cervical protocol was another step in the healing process. I went back to see him every couple of months for over a course of a year. And then I learned his protocol, brought it back to my chiropractor, and that piece of the puzzle was there. But that's just the physical piece, gang. It's that heartfelt spiritual piece that was really the essence of what it was. And so if there's a message I have for you today, it's to not get stuck in form. Don't get stuck in the form or the timing with which you are sharing your gifts with the world. Okay? And you don't have to develop Crohn's disease or a low back, which, by the way, if anybody's interested, if you ever saw my x-rays, you'd go, okay, on the physical front, I see it, right? Like, I have no disc at L5S1, I have no disc at T10, I have almost no disc at T6, and I have actually a regenerative disc at C5-6. Just a misspent youth. I mean, that's just, that's all that is, right? That's all that was. So, how many people here have a big, hairy, audacious goal for their life or their business? Who, by show of hands? Who has that? And by the way, just, Ed already asked you this, like, are we going to play flat in or flat out? Because this is like, I'm kind of here. This is like, frig yeah, I'm here. So who has a big, hairy, audacious goal for their life or their business? Yeah, right. And you should have. But I can tell you what, here's the essence of my talk today. Screw goals, procrastinate your way to success. Who here is a procrastinator? Show of hands. Oh, get your friggin' hands up, you guys. Come on. Gee whiz. I contend that you need to procrastinate your way to success. And if I can say what I'm about to say in somewhat of an intelligent format, with very few jokes, Skip, because it doesn't get funnier than that, then, we're going to get somewhere. Here's why we don't accomplish our goals. Here's the truth. And I've been studying this stuff now, you guys, for just about 30 years. And this is why I contend. I didn't read this in Forbes, okay? Didn't get this from the Harvard Business Review. This is my experience, all right? 30 years of coach consulting, I don't even know how many hours of coaching experience that I have now. Number one, we don't have enough time in our life. This is one of the things that I hear. I've got too many commitments. I've got lots of other priorities. Maybe I'm just uncommitted. Maybe I just don't have my poop together. I don't set realistic goals. Man, I just lose track of the objective. I don't know how to manifest. Maybe I'm just lazy. Have you ever lived with that one? Have you ever did that negative self-talk? Yeah, there's a few honest people in the room. Thank you. Or are they just plain old procrastinate? Here's my offering to you. Here's the real reason why we don't accomplish our goals. Because we're not supposed to. Just let that sink in for a minute. But wait, I thought we were supposed to be goal-oriented. I thought we were supposed to be action. We were supposed to take action. Wait for it. Because these goals that we often set for ourselves are not connected to our values and not connected to our essence, right? We're not using what I call your authentic ability, and therefore it's not purposeful, effective, or profitable. So those goals that are not linked to essence, to source, to what we call your most authentic self, those are goals you should be procrastinating on, because those are not things that you're literally, why the creative intelligence loved you into existence to be here, those are not things you're here to accomplish. Which is why you procrastinate. Which is why you use that negative self-talk about being lazy or whatever it is that's going on inside of your mind, right? So the question is, how do we determine what are truly authentic goals? Good question? Yeah. Worthy of some exploration? Then let's play. Authentic ability, this is my thing. And by the way, I believe, huge believer in anchors, right? And rituals. So I've had this little it's copper actually. Copper bangle, I guess it would be called. It says live authentically. It's the last thing I put on where I get dressed every morning, right? Just reminds me to live authentically. And we're going to define what authenticity means in a minute, okay? But I wear that, and I see that hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times a day as I'm doing what I do, and it just anchors me back in. Because as a human being, sometimes I forget the things that I know to be true about myself. Let me say that again. As a human being, I sometimes forget the things I know to be true about myself. Is there anybody else in the room in that same place at times? Yeah. Authentic ability is at the heart of the activities you most love to do and do best. It's the set of underlying actions, belief systems, and ways of being, thinking, doing, or seeing the world that are unique to you. You then apply these to various activities in life. Buckminster Fuller said, everyone has the perfect gift to give the world, and each of us is freed up to give the gift that is uniquely ours to give. The world will be in total harmony. Albert said it this way, everybody's a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. So, let's talk about the characteristics of authentic ability, which, by the way, I had the privilege of speaking with Dr. Monique, and Tamara was there as well, in New Zealand, at the New Zealand Chiropractic College Lyceum in September. And I only played rugby for a short period of time in my life, but I thought, man, the All Blacks, the New Zealand All Blacks, they're the bomb, right? So I actually did a little Google research because I knew the World Cup was starting. Anyways, the moral of the story was they played one match while we were there. We changed our entire itinerary, went to Hamilton, and we got to experience the haka live. And they absolutely destroyed Tonga. 92-7, I think was the final score, right? So it was the second highest offensive game in the history of the world. I was happy to pay $15 for a beer to watch that happen. It was awesome. So here are some of the characteristics. Superior skills. If you're note taking, you might want to jot some of this down. Superior skills. Others would agree you're really good at this. Would you agree that Ed has some superior skill at marketing? Yes or yes?
Yes.
Yes, right? Passion. You really enjoy doing this and are passionate about it is another example, another characteristic of living, working from your authentic ability. Energy. It energizes you, gives you energy when you do it. And what I'm intending right now is that some of you are going, okay, wait a second. I feel like he's talking about, and if you get like a glimpse, or what, B.J. Palmer, one of the founders of chiropractic, would say, an innate thought flash, please jot that down. Okay? Even if it's not something you're currently doing or something that you thought you were going to come and build a 7-figure or 6-comma or whatever the hell it's called funnel. Let's think big here, okay? It is factory installed. To some degree, you've been doing things this way since you were a kid. Just ask your parents. Maybe you weren't as aware way back then or it wasn't developed yet, but these abilities have been part of you since you were very, very young. Here's a small piece to that. To the degree that some people find value in my ability to communicate my message. My mom was telling me a story a few Christmases ago that my older brother, who's 2.5 years older than me, a medical doctor, but I don't hold that against him, quite frankly. Thank you, Larry. It's a small joke. You can, but apparently he was born with like some Cockney accent and marbles in his mouth. So even though he was almost 3 years older than me, he would mumble something out loud, and then I would interpret it for him, and I'd say, well, Mom, he wants you to pass the milk and peanut butter or something, right? So apparently I was paraphrasing communication. My dad said I would never say, Daddy, big truck. I would say, Father, there's a humongous truck driving down the road. Like, where'd this kid come from? Right? Feels easy and totally natural. Easy and totally natural. What you do may not seem exciting or special because it comes so naturally and easily to you. You assume it's so easy or obvious that others can do it too, right? I mean, Ed building a funnel or other things that he does, it just comes natural to him. I guess it wasn't always that way, right?
No, I couldn't program a VCR.
Yeah, absolutely. It's values-based and meaningful. They're connected to your core values. We're going to talk about that in a minute. And you highly value this way of being and doing, and therefore it feels incredibly meaningful to you, right? And with 7.7 billion people on the planet, it's going to be meaningful to others as well. A couple more. It is the best way. You see this as the best way to operate. It would feel wrong to do it any other way. It just wouldn't be you. You can't understand why everyone doesn't do it this way too, because it works so well. It's authentic. It's authentic. Creates the most value. This is really how you best create value for all the people in your life. Your family members, friends, clients, prospects, students, colleagues at work. It might be what you get paid for, or maybe not yet. Or maybe not yet. And I think one of the things that Ed and I resonate very strongly about is about making an impact on the planet, making an impact with people, right? Connecting with other humans and helping them be the best versions of themselves. And so, as a hands-on chiropractor, I could see hundreds of people a week, but now through my coaching consulting programs, I now interact with tens of thousands of people a week, right? So it's just, and again, it's not right or wrong. This isn't a moral discussion, gang. It's like Ed said, one sale is a start, it's a place. Because there's equal pros and cons to all things. There's equal pains and pleasures to all ways of being in the world, right? If you think that this is better than that, right? I mean, Ed creates this stuff, and then he has to, as an introvert, he has to stand in front of you guys and share his heart, right? There's some pain associated with that. So don't think that it's necessarily better, and there won't be any, pain associated with that. But when you're truly called from within to do it, I'll tell you a story. When I used to weight train heavy, I weigh about 200 pounds right now, but I used to weigh about 235 for many years, and I was lifting heavy, right? Squatting, benching, all kinds of stuff. So I just finished this really big leg set with a ridiculous amount of weight on the thing. And I just finished it, and there was a lady there, a retired school teacher, who used to work out in the area that I worked out in. And I was just like a puddle of sweat, right? I'd superset a pyramid of this thing. I was just a mess, right? It was just like dripping. And I kind of finished it, and I'm breathing really hard, and I looked over at her, and she goes, "That looked hard." I said, "Yeah, it was." I said, "Does it ever get easier?" And she goes, "Yeah, but then you'll just make it hard again." And I thought, oh my God, that is the purpose of resistance exercise, isn't it? Right? The purpose is the journey. It's not necessarily the destination. And when you can take joy in the journey, you take joy in sharing the biggest and best and most authentic part of you with the world, gang, that's when you really, in my experience, my offering to you, that's when you've really hit the sweet spot. That's when you've found what you've been called to do at this stage of your life. The interesting thing is, it can change forms. It can change forms, right? Because when Ed first intended, the things that he's doing, it wasn't necessarily to do a live event. But now, so that's now a piece of what he's doing and what he's offering. It's making a difference in your lives. Does that make sense, gang? Does that resonate?
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Multiplies results. This is another big piece of the puzzle. This is the way for you to truly expand the impact you have in the world, be the most productive, and create the greatest results. Just a couple more, and it's constantly evolving. The understanding, description, and application of your authentic ability is a constant work in process. Your self-awareness will increase the more you use it in different situations and with different audiences. Over time, who you are as a person won't fundamentally change, but your authentic ability will evolve throughout your life and will keep getting better and better the more you apply it. My purpose in life, you guys, when I started, my mentor, John DeMartini, was the first one that inspired me to the idea of writing a purpose statement. And the first one I wrote was this big, voluminous, one-page thing. And I boiled my purpose down just to 2 words. It's to inspire authenticity. Right? Inspire authenticity with you today. Inspire authenticity with my team, with my clients, with my daughters, with my wife. It's to just live, right, authentically from that place to the best of my human faculties. And if anyone would like a list of my long list of human faculties, I can give you my wife's email address. It's a long list. You know what? Some of you are actually paying attention. I like that. Okay? So where does authentic ability come from? Wherever the universe comes from and whatever the universe is made up of. All right? Often referred to as universal intelligence, and the subset of human beings is referred to as innate. Whatever that means to you. And it means different things to different people. One of my facilitators at our Mind, Body, Spirit retreats, he has I like how he languages. He goes, that which is called so many names and worshipped in so many ways. Whatever the hell that is, right? That's where authentic ability comes from, right? Because I offer that every living thing on the planet has a purpose, has a meaning. Purpose is defined in Webster's as the reason something exists or is done. The reason something exists or is done. So there's a reason every living thing exists or is done in the way it's done. So, factory installed, you put a light on, where's a moth going to fly, gang?
To the light.
To the light, every friggin' time. It's programmed, it's innate, right? You have, out in BC here, you get, trout or salmon in the spring, where are they going?
Upstream.
Upstream, every time. It's programmed, it's innate, right? Geese in the fall, except for the ones that land on the golf courses and stay for the winter, where are they going? South. They're going south, right? So I would offer this. Every living thing has a purpose, it has a mission, and it's factory installed. Albert Einstein talked about us and matter this way. Concerning matter, we've all been wrong. What we've called matter is really energy, whose vibration has been lowered as to be perceivable to the human senses. There is no matter. There is only light and sound. His famous equation, E equals mc squared. Energy and mass or matter are interchangeable the closer you get the speed of light squared. That's basically what this is saying, just in another way. Right? So all of this matter, all of this stuff is actually interconnected. It's all part of the same whole, right? And when I got that, not just intellectually, gang, but when I got that later, my mitochondrial cell walls, I realize that there's only one of us here. There's only one of us here, right? Yeah. And so from that place, when you are literally, if you look at a classic buying cycle, right? Know you, like you, trust you. When you can truly connect with that most authentic part of yourself, that's why people trust you. Because they remember you, they recognize you in that space, energetically speaking, right? So, as Ed was talking about already today, it's about connection. It's about connecting with people in that space. What my downfall was for so many years was that I was so stuck in my head, right? And now I phrase it this way, I'm just a recovering headaholic, right? I could stand up in front of a 12-step program and say, hi, I'm Tom. I'm a recovering headaholic, right? Because I grew up in a culture, my dad was literally Paul Bunyan. He was a lumberjack. That's what he did. And he, I don't know how you saw your parents, but my dad was like bigger than, all get out. And he was a big man. He was, almost 6'3", weighed 240. And he was literally Paul Bunyan, right? And so looking up to that and admiring that and looking at, gauging myself from that place, right? Man, I tell you, that shaped me and influenced me. All right, so let's have a look at the matter and what this really means to try and give you context for what's possible for you when you're connected to that authentic aspect of self. All right, you guys with me?
Yeah.
Okay, so we had an astronomy professor from Queen's University in Canada came to our community and gave a talk. And he was trying to help us get a perspective on this E = MC² thing. He was trying to give us a perspective on just how much energy there was available to us. Okay? And if we truly agree, and my offering to you is that we are all connected at that space, that there is no matter, there's just literally energy, and behind the energy, as Einstein said, is just a supreme consciousness. Right? I love the acronym GOD, right? Grand Organizing Design, whatever that is, right? That's what works for me. And so he gave us perspective this way. He said, if you were to take a grain of sand, tiny, tiny grain of sand, and fill a construction-sized wheelbarrow, okay, fill a construction-sized wheelbarrow, he says, that's how many suns or stars there are in our solar system, in the Milky Way. Okay? So I don't know how many grains of sand there is in a construction-sized wheelbarrow, but it's quite a bit. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Right? So that's the matter, but really the matter is just energy moving really slowly. So is that a lot of energy? Are you a subset or fractal of that energy?
Yes.
Are you a subset or fractal of that energy?
Yes.
Yes. So that's, I don't know about you, but that's big. For me, that's big. But that's just our little, Milky Way, okay? Our little Milky Way galaxy. This is the part that gets me. He said Hubble is still finding new parts to the known universe. So they believe that the universe, we haven't seen it all yet, right? But he says if you were to take all of the known suns and stars that Hubble has found in our expanding universe, he said you would need to look at every grain of sand on every beach and every lake and every ocean, every stream and every pond on every continent on planet Earth to represent the known stars and suns in the known universe. And that matter is really just energy. I can't get there, you guys. I can't wrap my head around that. I live so much in a finite world, I can't wrap my head around what an infinite thing is. But whatever that is, it's a heck of a lot. And I'm a subset of that. I'm a piece of that. And when I look out into that universe and I see that creativity and I see that wisdom and I see that power and I think, man, I'm a fractal of that. But only when I get out of my head, get into my heart, and I'm working and living from my most authentic self. I'm inspired to stay in that space as much as humanly possible. Because see, the way I see it, it's all interconnected. It's all beautifully interconnected. Right? Ed's purpose for being here is to influence you. And by influencing you, you get a chance to go out and make a ripple with what you do and the lives that you touch. And so on and so on and so on. And when I saw this in my mind's eye, it was like this beautiful big chain, right? Like a big chain of interconnected links. And when I got that, you guys, I knew I was no longer naive enough to not know it. And I wasn't arrogant enough to not play my role, to not be my little link in the chain. And there's hopefully a couple of you this day that are going to get something from what I've got to share, which would be worth the 3 rickshaws, pony, snowmobile, and 4 airplanes that I took to get here. Right? It is hard to get here, actually, that it is, but it's worth it. I look at it this way, you guys, right? All of the hands of all of the people interconnected and working around the planet to fulfill our role. So if you own that, if you can stand in the light of that, then you'll realize that, again, you're no longer naive enough to not know it, and hopefully you're not arrogant enough to not share the biggest injustice with you to the best of your human frailty for the rest of your lives. Right? All right. You know what? This little guy who lives in the Linhares Game Preserve in Brazil, and he's been studied by this professor down there, whose name I can't pronounce. And this is a cactus that grows between 14 and 21 pink fruits every day. Now what's interesting is that this little guy, his activity is synced to when these little fruits push themselves up out of the cactus. So as the day warms up, right, he warms up, he starts to become active, and these things push up through the cactus. This is how he gets his water in this desert, which is literally over 120 Fahrenheit most of the time. Okay? Now what's interesting is that in each one of these little pods is 15 to 22 seeds. Now here's what to me is fascinating. Think about how interconnected it all is. This little guy comes and eats that. The water keeps him alive. By ingesting the seeds, he then goes out and as he defecates, he's spreading the seed. It all kind of fits together, yes? Here's the fascinating thing that this guy thought was just absolutely remarkable. He said, they studied it, and it doesn't matter what they do with those seed pods. If they don't run it through the intestinal tract of this lizard, they will not germinate. How interconnected are we all, you guys, right? What is your story? How are you a lizard, right? How is what you're doing impacting in the lives of others? And where are you defecating? Where are you defecating? No, we don't need to go there. We don't need to go there, right? Quantum entanglement is a physical phenomenon which occurs when pairs or groups of particles are generated, interact, or share spatial proximity in ways such that the quantum state of each particle cannot be described independent of the state of others, even when the particles are separated by a large distance. Anyone else a student of quantum physics? Anybody? Yeah, absolutely, right? Old Newtonian physics has played a role, but it's on its way out. So if you want to, get your science left brain around this, go and research literally quantum entanglement. It's kind of the story that I'm offering to you, okay? So authentic ability, said another way, is your factory installed innate gifts that come from source and therefore give you access to the wisdom, power, and creativity that is the source. All right. By the way, one other quick stat, would you please feel free to share this. Deepak Chopra, when I did some work with him many years ago, he found this. 168 hours in a week, he was looking for the ultimate cause of heart disease, myocardial infarcts, right, which is still one of the biggest killers in North America, okay? 168-hour week, if you take out the hours that people sleep, right, there's still a lot of hours there. He found that 32.7% of all heart attacks happen between 9 and 10 on Monday mornings. Why? Because so many people do not love their work, right? So many people in church are settled for doing something that's not congruent with who they authentically are. Think about that, you guys. A third of all heart attacks between 9 and 10 on Monday mornings. That's startling to me. It's absolutely startling to me. He said this when he looked at all of the physiological parameters, and of course Deepak is into mind-body stuff as well. He said that when he burned it down, his research showed this. He said the two greatest indicators of heart disease are you happy with your life, and you love your work. That was far more important than cholesterol or triglycerides or HDL, LDL ratios or all of that physiological parameter stuff. He seems like a pretty short guy. So why don't we accomplish our goals? Because we're not living, working, planning, goal setting from our authentic ability. And by the way, I do have a process, because at this point you guys are using Ed's language. You guys are basically asleep relative to me and what I do and what I offer. So what I did offer, and Ed wanted me to do this, is we have a little postcard here. And if you would love to get some time to connect with me and talk about what I've talked about and talk about how that applies to your life, I would love to do that. There's a link on there. It goes to my personal calendar. I would love to book a discovery call with you just to see if I could add value to your life. Because like Ed, I'm really committed to adding value to people's lives and in building relationships. Okay? We actually have an entire authentic ability reveal process, which takes a month to actually do, which is clearing away all of the debris that is not authentically you, and then holding you accountable for your greatness. Right? So that is an actual process we have. If you're interested, I'm happy to talk to you a little bit about that. All right, so here's how goals could be set then, Jane, right? From your most authentic part of self, as evidenced through your core values. We have an exercise called I Know I Am Successful When, which I'll talk about just briefly, and then you have authentic goals, which you couldn't procrastinate on if you wanted to, right? Because they're coming from the essence of who you are, right? Here's where I know I am successful. And just to give you a thing, it's a thing I created 20-some years ago. When one of my coaches said this to me. He said, Tom, how do you know when enough's enough? And I said, what do you mean? He goes, how do you know enough time with your spouse is enough? How do you know time with your kids is enough? How do you know enough money enough? How do you know enough marketing is enough? How do you know enough cars enough? How do you know vacations enough? How do you know, and he just fire hosed me. Literally fire hosed me. And at that stage in my life, I didn't have an answer to any one of those questions because I'd never thought about it. I'd never actually defined success for myself. So this exercise that we take our clients through is designed to help people define success for themselves. Whatever it is that's innate to you and how you define success. What my experience has been is the vast majority of the thousands of people I've worked with over the last many years, 20-some years now, we may not even be conscious of it, we're buying into somebody else's dreams. And one of the pieces, if you guys have never heard this before, I'll offer this to you because it made a big difference in my life. Listen to your internal dialogue. When you hear yourself saying things like I ought to, got to, have to, need to, and of course the famous should, right? Ought to, got to, need to, have to, should. When you hear yourself using that language, I absolutely guarantee you this, you're buying into someone else's dream. You're subjugating your values to someone else's. When you hear yourself say things, I choose to, I desire to, I love to, man, that's when you're really coming from your most authentic aspect of self, in my experience. Okay? So when you're setting goals for you can no longer procrastinate. So let's go through this real quick as we wrap this up because I want to stay on our timeline and we're doing okay, Jason, on time? Ish?
Yeah.
Ish.
Doing okay? All right. Ish. Okay, thank you. So here's the benefits of authentic ability. And procrastination, owning things that you have natural authentic ability to do and are good at. Which, by the way, if it would be of value to you, I'm happy to share my slide deck with you guys. Because I did have to go through this a little bit quickly. Right? So I'm happy to share my slide deck with you guys if you want more of those characteristics, if you didn't get a chance to write them down, right? Delegate more to your team for the right reasons and have them support growing your business. That was my thing, right? Again, this is my own longitudinal study. It's like the framing and heart study, but Jim Collins wrote the great business book, Good to Great. Has anybody read Jim Collins, Good to Great? Right? Fantastic. It's like a twin study for business. What's the difference between the good and the great? And in my 20 plus years as a coach consultant, I've asked myself that question all the time. What's the difference between the good and the great professionals, entrepreneurs, health practitioners that I've worked with, right? And I can tell you that there are a few characteristics, but one of the most common ones is literally mindset, right? Mindset, which I think Jason's going to talk about this weekend, correct? Right? And so we found 4 different mindsets. And again, there is no right or wrong, this is a moral discussion, but I can tell you from experience that one of the early mindsets that I had is what we call lone wolf, right? I was that independent, rugged little individualist, right? That, I could literally remember early in business, I'd say silly things like this. I might as well do it myself because no one can do it as good as me anyways. Anybody ever heard themselves say that? Yeah, right? And again, this is not a moral discussion, so that's not a good or a bad or right or wrong thing, but I can tell you it creates an outcome, it creates a consequence. And the consequence is you can't share your gifts with the world to the degree that it's possible if you're trying to do it all yourself, right? So as a good coach often does, one of my business coaches out of Dallas, Texas, a guy named Rick Sapio many years ago, he said to me, Rick's a good guy. Like Rick a lot, actually. I just sang him a little a cappella song for his birthday the other day. He called me back and he goes, dude, you are the worst effing singer I've ever heard in my life. I said, thank you for at least listening, right? Rick said to me one time, as a good coach does, they almost always ask a question. You ever notice that, a coach? They only ask you questions that, they already know the answer to. You ever notice that? Right? So Rick asked me a question. He goes, you and your wife have done pretty well financially. He goes, what is it you want to do with the rest of your life? He says, you want to work on your golf game? Or do you want to teach other people what you've learned with your tens and tens of thousands of hours of coaching experience and make a bigger impact on humanity? I mean, I was busted, right? Because I don't even really like golf that much. But I had the opportunity to make an impact. So now we're a company of 11 instead of me and a part-time virtual assistant, right? I've got 4 associate coaches, I've got a marketing department, an admin department, and we're doing what we can to spread our message of authenticity to the world because of the difference it can make in people's lives, right? You got to be able to delegate, gang. Have work be that much more fun and fulfilling. Again, if you're finding that it's tough and it's just always a grind, I'm suggesting to you that you're probably not working from your most authentic self because it does not have to be a grind. A couple other pieces. Lower your stress levels by doing the things by not doing the things you shouldn't be doing. Stop beating yourself up. By the way, does anybody have 4 black belts and a PhD and beating the crap out of themselves? Anybody have that besides me? Anybody? A few people. Cool. Some of you seem like you've graduated from that school. Good for you. Stop beating yourself up, right? We just talked about that. Increase your productivity, which increases your profitability. And coming from a money blueprint where money was evil, money doesn't grow on trees, all of the things that I can remember my dad, teaching me based upon his mindset and stuff, there's nothing wrong with profit, you guys. There's absolutely nothing wrong with profit. It took me an awful long time to get to a place where I could accept that, right? So by the way, just out of curiosity, because I think this might come up in our event later today, but how many people here are a better giver than a receiver? Show of hands. Yeah, the vast majority of the room, right? How many people would love to give or serve at a higher level? That's one of the reasons you're here, right? Here's a piece for you to consider on that front before we wrap this up. I do contend that we live in a binary universe, okay? There's equal light to dark, hot to cold, good to bad, okay? So giving and receiving are really just flip sides of the same coin. And every morning now for over a decade, part of my morning ritual besides my meditation is Taoist Tai Chi. And there's a move in Taoist Tai Chi that literally looks like this as you get into your stance. It's literally sending and receiving love to the world, right? Sending and receiving love, but notice, in equal proportions, right? In equal proportions, sending and receiving. So here's the thing. You can't give, you can't serve at a higher level until you can learn to receive. It's impractical, it's impossible. So many people are trying to give through a friggin' big fire hose, and they're receiving through a straw. You want to give more, you got to learn to receive more. You got to open that channel up, you guys. And again, because it's a binary, it's self and other. Self and other. Self-love. Other love. Allowing that and opening that up to receive. So I used to coach at 5 a.m., 6 a.m. I don't work with clients or team members before 10 a.m. Because from 5 or 6 a.m. when I get up until 10 a.m., that's Tom time. That's my time. That's a way for me to love myself, to dedicate time to myself, right? And I have a morning ritual. It takes me usually 90 minutes minimum to sometimes 2.5 hours. And that's me filling my tank. That's me filling myself. So that subject to my human frailties, and there is a long list I could send, Seth, if you'd like it, right? My wife will have it. Subject to my human frailties, I want to be the best version of me, the most authentic version of me I can be, because I got things that I want to do. I want to be the best father in the world. I want to be the best husband in the world, the best friend in the world, the best coach in the world. I want to help people get that living authentically is actually meaningful and important to them. I want to serve at this level, but man, I got to be willing to receive. And I tell you, I had a big block to that for many years. And if that speaks to you, then I'm hoping that maybe we can do a right turn talk about it over the course of the next couple of days. Because there's some good insights that I've gleaned that I'm happy to share for you as well. All right, a couple of pieces. Increase word-of-mouth referrals. I love word-of-mouth referrals, right? My God. And actually, when I started coaching, I had to learn about marketing because I didn't know much about marketing because I was just quite good at what I did, and it was built upon internal referrals and speaking, right? I went out in the community and spoke, and I did my healthcare demonstrations every week, Wednesday night, 6 o'clock, like clockwork, right? And the people just came. So then afterwards, when people say, well, I need some help learning about marketing, I said, well, I need to learn how to market. So I've already taken 2 pages of notes. Ed, thank you for this morning. It's been great. All right. More word-of-mouth referrals means less marketing time, energy, and money spent. Increased energy means more energy bid for family, hobbies, and recreation time, right? Increased referrals equals increased revenue. And by the way, it was interesting how the law of attraction, I was on the plane yesterday out of the 3, I literally had 3 flights changed yesterday to get here, which is a new record for me in the same day, right? But interesting, I sat beside a guy who's from Victoria who works for New Balance. He's a buyer for New Balance, and he used to work for Patagonia. And he was telling me about the founder of Patagonia. I don't remember the man's name, but a really interesting character. And he literally loved climbing. But the gear that he was finding in the 50s when he was climbing wasn't that good, so that I can build gear. So he would go and build gear when he wasn't climbing, but when it was climbing time, he'd just take off for 4 to 6 months. He still does that today. He's in his 70s, and Patagonia is a very large company. He still takes off for 4 to 6 months a year and does what he's supposed to do, right? Because it's possible to take leverage, right, and be able to have your cake and actually eat it too. Increased time efficiency means more time for family, hobbies, sports, and you. And this is something I'm going to Portland on Sunday to actually speak at this guy's place. By becoming more authentic, I'm on a steadily increasing path to realize not only my practice goal, but my personal goals. 2018 has been my best growth year. I've been in practice 36 years. Not only by my practice numbers, but more importantly by my inner heart vision alignment. With your assistance, I've generated a continued positive practice of affirmations, clear visions and dreams, all leading to a better life. 20 major growth here. We've collected nearly 90K this month and nearly 250 today over the quarter. He increased his billings by 280,000 last year. My love relationship with a beautiful wife, Alyssa, has never been better. It's filled with honor, respect, humor, and balance. We both share tons of gratitude for each other. He also started playing the piano after 30 years. Started to do a hiatus because that was authentic for him, right? So again, there is a way, you guys, to build a business, share your message, share your genius with the world, and actually have a great life as well. This is another one of my clients, Dr. Rena. So anyways, you guys, here's what I'd like to share with you. This is my grandson, Finn. This is Finn. And I'm biased, but damn, he's cute. Remember the Marianne Williamson quote, you guys? Our deepest fear is not that we're inadequate. Our deepest fear is we're powerful beyond measure. It's our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who you're not to be. You're a child of God. Your plain small doesn't serve the world. There's nothing light about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We're all meant to shine, as children do. And as we let our own light shine, we will constantly give others permission to do the same. If you can remember just a couple things from this presentation, you guys, it's that interconnectedness. It's about that linked purpose that we all have. And by you making a difference with your life, coming from the most powerful place that you have, from your place of authenticity, you stand a chance to make the biggest difference in other people's lives. And the ripple goes on. Every morning, as I'm standing in front of the toilet in our bathroom, I have a picture on the wall, and it's a picture of a drop of water going into a pond and the ripples going out, right? And that's another affirmation, another anchor that I have every day. To do, subject to my human frailties, do the best that I can do that day. To live authentically. Because with the creativity, power, and wisdom that I'm connected to when I'm in that space, I have the greatest opportunity to make the biggest difference with my life. I think that is time, as Fred Barge used to say, enough said. Thanks so much for listening. Our mission at Full Circle Coaching and Consulting is to awaken individuals to the power of authentic expression and help them realize their full potential, both personally and professionally. Without a cookie-cutter approach, we help you design and manifest your most authentic dream life, resulting in you earning more money and you having more time with your loved ones. You don't need to learn anything new in order to have the business and life you desire. You need to unlearn and shed all the unsupportive beliefs and behaviors that are subconsciously sabotaging your success. We help you connect with that factory-installed inner guidance and then reverse engineer the steps it takes to go from where you are to where your heart is calling you to be. This is our specialty. Let us help. When you're ready, connect with us through the links in the description below or go to our website at fullcirclecoachingandconsulting.com.